But we begin this hour with the oath of office required for most federal employees. It specifies that an individual does solemnly swear that they will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and will bear allegiance to that Constitution. Note that it does not require one to, support and defend the president or swear allegiance to him. But in Donald Trump's America, it seems that is what is expected. You're either with him or you are against him. And we've seen what happens when you are seen as being against him. Perhaps you will have the Justice Department or FBI come knocking at your door, as in the case of Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, who is now a prominent Trump critic. Sources tell NBC News the search was focused on classified records. But it is difficult to separate the actions from the words of a president who ran on a promise of revenge. Joining us now, Skye Perryman, President and CEO of Democracy Forward, and Ankush Khardori, former federal prosecutor and Politico magazine senior writer. I want to start there, Ankush. The inability, I guess, for all of us to separate what the president said, what he ran on, and the actions that they're doing. And when you think about what you saw on Friday, when you think about the fact that the FBI, the now FBI director, wrote a book where he had an actual enemies list that he wrote down, what does that tell you about what we should be kind of girding ourselves for?
Well, we should be skeptical and maintain an open mind. And there are a couple of rules that I actually, tried to abide by during the Trump investigations and prosecutions that I thought were helpful. One, keep an open mind and maintain a healthy dose of skepticism.
We got that in doses here.
And two, take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We know what we know right now. We don't know how the story ends.
We haven't seen the affidavit. We haven't seen the search warrant.
Correct. And it's helpful to, I think, sort of keep another distinction in mind, which is it can be the case that an investigation or prosecution has improper motives, maybe even corrupt or unfair motives, and also that the prosecution ends up being justified by the facts and the evidence and the law. These things can both be true. So it doesn't mean that they're entirely distinct. You can judge the quality of the evidence in the context of the motives of bringing it, but you have to keep those things separate. Right now, we know very little about what happened. John Bolton, I understand, in some quarters, particularly since he took his turn against Trump, he's become more of a figure, a more prominent figure. But this is not a person who's served his country well, I would say, if you know the full sweep of his career. If anyone doesn't, go to the Wikipedia page of the George W. Bush administration section on Mr. Bolton's page. And you'll learn a lot of interesting things that will make you, I think, a little less sympathetic.
Well, I'm going to have to come back to that. But Skye, I take what Ankush said, but as he was speaking, I keep thinking, you can't completely dismiss the revenge and retribution motive of the president, especially when we have him on tape, recordings, video, using those very words. Watch this.
In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today, I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
In the first term I had it, but you guys were after me. I said I had to focus. I was the hunted, and now I'm the hunter. It's a big difference.
And Skye, that is the big line to me. I was the hunted, and now I'm the hunter. It's a big difference. Why shouldn't the American people view what happened to Ambassador Bolton and a slew of other government officials as retribution or revenge?
Look, I think that what's been said here is exactly right. The American people should be very concerned about a president and his associates, right, the FBI director and others that have made it clear and have gloated about their desire to engage in retribution against perceived political enemies. And at the same time, as citizens, we need to understand more about what's going on here. But that does not erase the concerns that we should have about the president's approach. Also, what happened this week, and it didn't make big headlines, is that the administration again pulled security clearances from people who are career civil servants who have done nothing other than swear that oath that you put up on the screen, an oath to the Constitution. And that is landing people that have dedicated their entire career swears, right, to the American people and to our Constitution in hot water with this president. So we do know that he has a retribution agenda. And then at the same time, when we look at this particular instance, I think we do need to learn more, but that should not erase the concerns that every American at this point, these are too big of concerns for people to think it won't happen to them, that it won't affect them. Every American should be concerned and should be pushing back.
We can have both of those things in our head at the same time. I want to read from this Atlantic headline that I think was written by Shane Harris. The Bolton raid feels like a warning. Quote, Purge doesn't adequately capture what national security experts see happening here. Chilling effect is too mild, though revoking the security clearances of 2 senior intelligence officers, as Gabbard did, effectively ending their government careers will indeed send a message. Terrorizing the workforce is a phrase I heard a lot this week, and that may indeed be the point. As a former DOJ official, as a former federal prosecutor, what does this do to morale in the DOJ? And more importantly, how does that, I assume, makes it low? Yeah. And how does that how does that lower morale impact the ability of the agency to accomplish its mission?
Well, that is the critical question here. Is this going to deter people from undertaking investigations or pursuing prosecutions that they should be doing under normal circumstances? And now they might not, because they're afraid that they'll be punished by the sitting administration or maybe even a future administration. And I think the point that Skye made there was very, very important, because we, as long as this talk has been going on during the 2024 campaign, Trump talked about it all the time, the revenge tour that was going to happen. To my mind, the people who we know, the more prominent media figures and more political figures, are in some ways the people we should be least concerned about. It's the people we don't know, the people whose names we don't immediately
recognize. They have less access to resources and money.
Right, who don't have access to the media, money to defend themselves, who are losing their jobs and their careers and their livelihoods, even though they have families. I mean, there are many, many stories. I'm sure you've been talking about them and have seen and heard them, of regular career people who have just been handed a notice saying you're out of a job, and they have a family and kids, and then they're left adrift.
And
go ahead, Skye.
I was just going to say, and I think that this is something we want every single American to focus on, because when we talk about patriotism, when we talk about the love for this country, right, these are the men and women and people that have been fighting for our country in uncelebrated ways throughout our national security teams, at the Department of Justice, at intelligence agencies, and they are being targeted by this administration, and that is going to make the United States less safe. It is going to make every single American less safe. And I think that needs a lot more attention than what it's getting right now.
Ankush, there is a story in the AP. We're switching gears slightly here. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, a Senate hopeful, claimed 3 homes as his primary residence. Now, I bring that up because this week we have heard all sorts of claims of mortgage fraud against the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, against Senator Adam Schiff, and now against Governor of the Federal Reserve, Lisa Cook. What's up with mortgage fraud? That seems to be the go-to thing to sort of muddy up someone's either their reputation or muddy them up legally.
Because maybe we shouldn't be buying any house. I know.
Look,
get into trouble here.
It seems to be the case that someone in the administration or around the administration had the idea of going and scouring a bunch of people's mortgage applications. They're complex documents. They're not even entirely, it's not even necessarily you who's doing all the writing. Right. You sign it, there are discrepancies. And so anytime you have a discrepancy, if you're really superficial about it, you can say, oh, this might be fraud. In fact, mortgage fraud cases are typically not brought in the context on the facts that they've so far released. This, too, is another very helpful distinction to keep in mind, because the mortgage fraud allegations I put in a slightly different category because they appear on their face to be so weak and contrived. The Bolton investigation, right? And I think anything involving classified documents, whether it concerns Bolton or perhaps Miles Taylor, I would be more concerned for those people.
Right. Yeah.
If I were them, I'd be more concerned.
I should also point out that the Trump Justice Department doesn't seem to be looking at the Texas Attorney General in his mortgage problems with 3 homes as primary residences.
Just good reporting. I want to pull up some headlines for you, Skye, of Trump's retributive actions this week. And you brought up the Gabbard revoking security clearances of 37 intel officials who allegedly allegedly abused public trust. There's obviously the John Bolton home search, but also Hegseth firing the general whose agency's intel assessment of damage from Iran strikes angered Trump. It feels like I don't know, whole of government, which is not usually how we use that term, but whole of government approach to making sure that Donald Trump is happy. And that's not usually how the government operates. So talk about your concerns, because I know you have them, about the entire government being solely focused on making sure that one man is seemingly happy.
Well, it's simply not how it's supposed to work. And there is nothing that I have not found a person living in any place in the United States whose life has gotten better since Donald Trump has gotten into office. This administration has been cutting essential benefits for people and then at the same time engaging in, frankly, small, petty, but very scary and intimidating retribution tactics. And that is weakening our government. It's weakening the ability of the government to serve the people. And on the national security front, again, this should concern everybody, regardless of what your political beliefs are. This is a 5-alarm fire because it's going to make us less safe if people are not speaking truth to the president and providing accurate intelligence assessments and doing their job that they have to do consistent with their obligations to the Constitution and the American people. And this president doesn't have room for those people in his government.